An aspect of the DCU everybody's been wondering about is how James Gunn will go about incorporating the Justice League in the wider universe, and how he'll go about setting them up. It's an interesting point of conversation with the few projects that have been released so far, along with the tidbits we know about upcoming ones that could potentially plant the seeds for a major crossover event, or whatever larger story might be told across the different projects. What are some ways that members of the Trinity could interact with one another? What roles will each of them have as the major pillars of the world building? Arguably even more intriguing to ponder are the potential villains or threats that could emerge and force the major heroes to team up in the first place, ultimately leading to the formation of the Justice League. The roster of characters that the creators can pick and choose from for the inevitable Justice League movie is practically endless, and I'm gonna be here for it. With the amount of projects centered around him and his supporting cast this early into the DCU, Superman seems to be the leading figure and sort of cornerstone of the universe, possibly leading the new wave of heroes by setting an example, due in large part to being the most powerful metahuman on the planet. The Superman movie does a lot to showcase some of the pre-established history and how metahumans have been around for quite some time. The Justice Gang are a known superhero team in Metropolis, and the mural in the Hall of Justice highlights some of the more prominent metas over the centuries. Man of Tomorrow is set to be the next entry in the Superman saga, helmed by James Gunn, specifically focusing on the story of Superman over the course of at least 4 films.
I am thinking, well, what is the long-term story I'm telling here? What is the story that I'm going to tell about Superman over 4 movies? What is the story I'm telling about Peacemaker over, a number of different media? What is it that's the long-term story for these characters, and how does that intertwine with the stories of other characters?
Despite what some people somehow believe because of what Matt Reeves is doing with his own universe, Batman will obviously be an important part of the DCU. We don't know the exact amount of years he's been a vigilante, but he's a part of the catalog of heroes that have already been around and aren't newcomers. The inclusion of the Bat family is something that will help this version stand out from the rest on the big screen, exposing movie-going audiences to the character of Robin in live action for the first time in over 30 years by the time The Brave and the Bold comes out. In terms of Batman's role in future stories, I think it'd be cool to have it so that he's one of the few people with a good amount of intel on the surge of metahumans over the years, planning ahead in various ways to deal with potential threats, and how that ties into him teaming up with other heroes. We're reaching a point in the DCU where the 3 major factions are the metahumans, governments, and corporations. Wayne Industries is one of the 4 major corporations vying for power alongside Luthor Corp, Stag Industries, and Lortech. With his expertise across a multitude of technological fields and his overall intelligence, Batman could be among those tracking metas in and out of Gotham, with Arkham being one of the prisons with a metahuman breakout problem.
This is the 3rd metahuman escape from Belle Reve or Arkham in the past 2 months.
Arkham and Belle Reve. They're not capable of holding individuals who have extraordinary abilities. Every single month, someone escapes.
Wonder Woman would naturally be another figure who is a top priority for DC Studios, being a member of the Trinity and all. Along with being a founding member of the Justice League, her role can be more tied to being an ambassador and trying to keep the peace. Political tensions have been rising due to growing fears surrounding metahumans and the amount of power and influence they could potentially have over governments. First instance of this was the Princess of Pakolistan being killed by the Bride, Lex Luthor creating Ultraman and working with the president of Baravia, Gurkos, in an attempt to ruin Superman's reputation, and a hot girl literally killing Gurkos near the end of the movie.
She executes a world leader. Probably not the best choice in that situation, might have ramifications outside of this film.
There's a famous quote from comic writer Gail Simone stating how if you want to stop an asteroid, you call Superman. If you want to solve a mystery, you call Batman. But if you need to end a war, you call Wonder Woman. Themyscira is already known to the general public, and Diana's diplomatic efforts can help mitigate any negative discussions surrounding the Amazons thanks to the actions of Cersei, who in this universe is also from Themyscira. Since the DCU has been up and running, some people have complained that Gunn and company are taking too long to introduce Wonder Woman and Batman, saying things like, oh, why are we getting this and that project before a Batman movie? I want to take a second to look at a hypothetical timeline here, using the MCU as a prime example. The first Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk came out in 2008. 2 years later, in 2010, we got Iron Man 2. The following year in 2011, we got both Thor and Captain America the First Avenger, leading up to the release of the Avengers in 2012. When referring to the MCU specifically, rather than Marvel as a whole, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor are generally seen as the big 3. Thor and Cap weren't introduced until 3 years after Iron Man. We don't know when either of these movies will release, but if The Brave and the Bold and Wonder Woman were to release a couple years from now, that would line up fairly closely with how the MCU introduced its core heroes, debuting only a few years after Superman. Superman. The Brave and the Bold in particular is aiming to release sometime before 2030. I think it's cool how much they're fleshing out the different corners of the wider world in between entries focused on their heavy hitters. The motto at DC Studios is not to greenlight projects until the scripts are complete and satisfactory. So it's not a matter of, oh, we like this character more, so they're gonna get a movie before everyone else. It's just a matter of which scripts get completed first. Like, you feel me, or I'm wildin'?
Life is hard, bro. You just gotta be harder. You feel me? Or I'm wildin'.
Before we get to a proper Justice League team-up, whether it be as an expanded Justice Gang roster or a separate team entirely, I think it's imperative that we get an actual well-made team-up movie with Batman and Superman, or a Trinity movie with Wonder Woman. Ideally, Wonder Woman and Batman would have their solo outings that are well received by critics and audiences, and properly cement their significance for the future, so an announcement of a World's Finest or Trinity movie would only drive up hype and anticipation. This is their chance to properly adapt a compelling friendship and dynamic between these characters. The Trinity aren't going to be the only important cornerstones of the DCU. The Green Lantern mythos is finally getting the spotlight in live action, with Lanterns releasing 15 years after the 2011 movie starring Ryan Reynolds. It's set to be a multi-season television show, exploring more of the cosmos and galactic side of the universe. But the initial premise of the series will be an Earth-based mystery in Nebraska, revolving around a shooting that catches the attention of Hal Jordan. For the longest time, the show was described as a buddy cop tale with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart at the center stage, inspired by a true detective with a gritty, mature tone. The grounded approach comes from wanting to take the mythology and translate it into an HBO human drama, with much of the narrative being character-driven. But that doesn't mean they aren't going to incorporate the extraterrestrial, cosmic elements that the Green Lanterns are known for, like their powering abilities, wearing costumes, going off-planet, the Guardians of Oa, etc. Cause the show was getting clowned on for not demonstrating those aspects in the early teasers.
Have you seen the memes? Have you seen the memes about me? Posting them should be a crime.
But the latest footage of the show demonstrates how those elements will in fact remain intact. You can check my history. I never once complained about the lack of green constructs here. Just check it. Look. It seemed unorthodox to have Jon Stewart as a rookie in present day training under Hal Jordan for only a couple of months and doesn't even have his own ring. Meanwhile, characters like Superman, Supergirl, and the Justice Gang have been active for some period of time. But as it turns out, the moments where Hal is forced to train Jon as a new recruit and eventual replacement actually take place in 2016, where a shooting occurs in a small rural town in Nebraska, and Hal thinks it has something to do with aliens. The show will then jump 10 years to present day to tackle another mystery that ties into the larger story of the DCU. So it's good to know that when the show does jump to present day, as well as when Jon Stewart appears in Man of Tomorrow, he'll have several years of experience as a Lantern under his belt. Hopefully he'll appear in a decent suit in that movie, because so far the DCU is 0 for 2 when it comes to Green Lantern suits. I understand why Guy Gardner looks the way he does, because it's a lore tech outfit. Each member of the Justice Gang wears the same thing but in different colors. But Hal Jordan's suit is straight booty cheeks, bro. I'm sorry. Even if the colors were brighter, the base design is just atrocious. I don't know what they were thinking when designing his suit. If Jon Stewart is going to be the quote-unquote main Green Lantern, or the one that joins the Justice League, I hope it isn't a result of them killing off Hal Jordan in Lanterns, given how Jon was trained to be the backup Lantern in case something were to happen to Hal. It'd be a missed opportunity for Hal Jordan's story to begin and end in one season of television, never getting the chance to interact with the wider DCU, or seeing iconic Lantern stories with Hal at the center stage adapted. As seen in Peacemaker Season 2, Maxwell Lord is trying to expand the Justice Gang, and the Hall of Justice is already their base of operations as seen in Superman. So it leaves one wondering whether the Justice League will just be an expansion of the pre-established Justice Gang roster, or if it'll be an entirely separate entity. From what we know so far about Man of Tomorrow, it seems like there's going to be a sizable amount of powerhouses present. You've got Superman and Lex Luthor as the center protagonists, teaming up to fight Brainiac. The Justice Gang is making a return, which consists of Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. Jon Stewart's gonna be in the movie. There's also Maxima and a couple of other rumored / speculated characters set to appear, combined with undisclosed roles. Because of the rumored cast list, you can expect comparisons to Batman vs Superman, with some arguing that the movie is too overcrowded. One would hope that these heroes are integrated into the narrative organically and don't make the movie overstuffed. But the BVS comparisons with how that movie set up the Justice League doesn't hold up, because A, Man of Tomorrow hasn't come out yet, so we don't exactly know how it's going to be executed, and B, The scenes that set up the Justice League roster and Darkseid as the big bad are completely detached from the main plot of BVS. Scenes like the Nightmare scene or Wonder Woman viewing footage of the other metahumans don't meaningfully impact the events of the story itself. It's only there to tease future projects and only pads the runtime. If you cut them out of the movie, nothing significant changes. I'd imagine the heroes in Man of Tomorrow are actually going to contribute to some capacity, doing things as simple as helping stop Brainiac's invasion by fighting off his probes on Earth. One of the most common complaints about superhero media set within a shared universe is that a multitude of characters are supposed to operate in close proximity to one another, yet they rarely show up in each other's stories unless it's for a major team-up film. Let's use what's currently going on in the MCU's New York as an example. Over the course of 6 months, you had a citywide blackout and the anti-vigilante task force apprehending innocent civilians, leading to riots and protests all over the city, while simultaneously having all vigilantes deemed illegal and hunted down, causing more innocents to be captured or killed. Crime and chaos have also been going rampant in Little Sicily, and Spider-Man is nowhere to be found.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
If it's a scenario relating to the possible end of the world, then it's only logical to get all hands on deck. Whether or not the main Justice League roster will be teased in Man of Tomorrow or further down the line remains to be seen. But if I got to draft pick my own primary lineup for the DCU, combining confirmed characters with a personal wish list, starting off with the Trinity is a no-brainer, not much explanation is needed on that front. For the Flash, I'd have it be Barry Allen so that Wally West and Dick Grayson can be contemporaries and a part of the same generation of Titans. John Stewart is probably going to be the main Green Lantern as he was confirmed for Man of Tomorrow, and Kyle Chandler's age is an indicator of him not being active in the long run. For any elite JLA lineup, you gotta add Martian Manhunter. This would be the perfect opportunity to actually adapt the character on the big screen. To add a bit of variety, I think it'd be cool to add Zatanna to the roster to serve as the team's linchpin for the magic side of the universe. Plus I think she'd have some really cool dynamics with Wonder Woman. Those would be my main 7, but if the lineup were to be extended to 9 characters, I'd add Green Arrow and Black Canary. There's obviously going to be some grand threat that will cause these heroes to band together, but it won't be done in the way that audiences might expect thanks to the success of the MCU. The DCU is more focused on world building instead of relying on one main story being told over the course of multiple shows and movies.
These are interconnected stories, but this is not, people are always going to be, who's the big bad? Who's the big bad?
Right.
And for their big bads for, connected films, yes.
Yeah.
But is this all about, hey, I'm telling this one story about this big bad? No. This is about a connected universe. We're world building. We're not story building. We're not writing one story that has a beginning, middle, and end. We're creating a universe in which people can go and join into this universe and experience it. And it is much more like Star Wars than Marvel in that respect.
I don't think the big threat will center on any grand multiverse elements or something that would lead to a crisis event. The MCU is already ending the multiverse saga with Secret Wars next year, and I think audiences have already become jaded with the concept of the multiverse. So I don't expect to see villains like the Anti-Monitor or Superboy Prime anytime soon. A common pick for a potential big bad is Darkseid, due to his lingering presence in the source material. He's been a major antagonist in other adaptations like Justice League Unlimited, films in the DC animated movie universe like Justice League War and Apocalypse War, as well as the original plans for Zack Snyder's intended Justice League trilogy, to name a few. Hate to burst anyone's bubbles who wanted to see Darkseid as the first major threat, but
using Darkseid as the big bad right now is not necessarily the thing, because for a lot of reasons, because Zack did it so cool in his way. And because of Thanos and Marvel,
On the bright side, he'll still have a major role in the upcoming Mr. Miracle animated show, which will in fact be DCU canon. The series will be based on Tom King's 12-issue book of the same name, where King himself is the showrunner and head writer of every episode. It's interesting because there was supposed to be a live-action movie centered on the New Gods during the DCEU era before it was cancelled, with Ava DuVernay attached to direct. Characters like Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, Granny Goodness, the Female Furies, and Highfather would have played a part in the script. And you'll never guess who co-wrote the script alongside the director. That's right, it was Tom King. So I guess he got his lick back by working with James Gunn and Peter Safran. The art style of the adult animated show will resemble the limited comic series drawn by Mitch Gerads. It will give us our first look at the New Gods and some of the larger implications of the DCU. New Genesis and Apocalypse will be at war with one another, toppled with Darkseid having access to the anti-life equation. I think a more likely threat that the Justice League could come across in their first official team-up is the Legion of Doom. Salvation is an alternate dimension discovered by Rick Flag Sr. and Argus, as a means of trying to find a place where metahuman prisoners would never be able to escape from, in light of the metahuman breakouts that have been going on. This all happened after Flag got access to the quantum unfolding chamber from Peacemaker, so what I could imagine happening is Salvation being used to house some of the larger threats. So far, the universe has established that villains like Cersei and Gorilla Grodd exist. Sinestro is going to play a role in Lanterns. Who knows what'll happen to Lex Luthor and Man of Tomorrow, or if he'll even be considered enough of a threat to be transferred to Salvation. We don't know what the Bane and Deathstroke film is about, but a cool theory that's been going around centers around those villains being transferred from, say, Blackgate or wherever to Salvation, and planting the seeds for them teaming up with other villains imprisoned there to escape. Reports say that while they're a part of the movie, it's unclear if it's solely about Bane and Deathstroke or just a wider movie with them in it, and Gunn has commented on how it's something like a Bane and Deathstroke story. I think an overabundance of villains escaping Salvation and wreaking havoc across multiple cities could be a good catalyst for the heroes to band together and coordinate accordingly. Like, imagine the more powerful metas like Gorilla Grodd, Cersei, and whoever else taking part in some sort of plan in Gotham, resulting in Batman and the Bat family gaining assistance from other heroes like The Flash or Wonder Woman. But that's just a potential path the DCU could go down in the long run. Any conversations surrounding big bads or major villains for the Justice League aren't confirmed or set in stone, just certain ideas based on what little we know so far. Who knows, there might not even be a Justice League movie in the pipeline. But let's be honest, DC Studios would be a bunch of fools not to make one at some point. And I'm not trying to wait until 2035 for one either. If they continue on the path of consistency with good projects that naturally build the universe and don't rush into things, it's only a recipe for success. If things do go well, this could finally undo years of damage to the IP caused by the previous regime's incompetence. Gotta go big or go home.